Good morning. Yeah, I'm like that too. I was like, my evening was like Dropbox, hotel Wi-Fi. This is going to be a disaster. But apparently, the downloading gods smiled on me, and my presentation is actually here. Today, I want to talk about geektivism, which, as you may guess, if you haven't heard the word before, is something that was coined to refer to geeks' activism. And I find it's a useful term because when you combine geeks and volunteerism, you get very interesting results and very inspiring results as well. I first learned about the notion of geektivism when I read about a program called Geek Corps that was sending folks to Ghana to pass on their technical skills. At the time, I was a website designer, and I thought it would be cool to go, and it certainly was. The founder of Geek Corps, a guy named Ethan Zuckerman, he had been an exchange student in Ghana when he was in college, and he would have liked to join the Peace Corps, but he wanted to make a contribution using his geek skills rather than, say, digging wells or teaching English. So today I want to talk about some of the lessons I've learned about geektivism from my own experience as a volunteer and also as the founder of a nonprofit organization. But let's talk about App Camp a little bit first, because I just have so many awesome photos. This is not one of them. I had the idea for App Camp for Girls when I was at WWDC 2011. I was already used to being in a mostly male-dominated profession, but in the conferences and the parties at DubDub, it just really struck me how lopsided and potentially intimidating our industry is. I tweeted this. I was really hoping somebody else would just do it and I could volunteer for it, but that did not happen. At the time, I was very involved in a program called Rock and Roll Camp for Girls, and I thought that that could be a model. At Rock Camp, girls come in on Monday, lots of them with no music experience whatsoever, and they get instrument instruction, they form a band, they write a song, they rehearse, and they play a showcase on the last day of camp. It's amazing. They go from zero to rock star in 1 week. And by combining that experience of collaboration along with the sense of accomplishment, Rock Camp has an incredible, powerful influence on girls' lives. And it started in Portland and actually has spread all over the world. So at WWDC 2012, I started talking to people about my ideas for starting this program. And I just committed myself to putting on 1 week of something I would call App Camp for Girls in 2013, that next summer. I commissioned this terrific logo by my dear friend and supporter, Julie Mills of Design Pony in Portland. I knew it was going to be important to communicate from the very beginning what our values were, and I think smart and fun and creative is what our main values at camp are, to be those things, but also a commitment to good design, because we knew the audience we were trying to reach, at least the parents of the girls we were trying to reach, would appreciate the thoughtfulness that goes into good design. We started with what we called Alpha Camp, and it was like a one-day focus group during spring break, just to see how interested the girls would be in the curriculum we were planning. And they loved it. Our lead developer, and now curriculum director, Gray Ostin, walked the girls through the experience of building an app. And it was the simplest app you can imagine. Yet they were totally thrilled that they could actually use an app that they made on an iPhone. It's got a turquoise background, a purple header. You can't really see from this photo, but all the fonts are red. And it was theirs, all theirs. And with the excitement that they had that day, I knew we had something that we could build on. Go. So after 2 sessions in Portland the first year, we expanded first to Seattle and then to Vancouver. To date, we've put on 9 sessions of App Camp for Girls and worked with over 100 girls and over 50 volunteers. In 2016, we're going to have 6 sessions in one summer. and that starts like in 3 weeks. Yikes. And we're adding new locations this summer in Phoenix, Arizona, and also Orange County, California. So the week at App Camp starts with a brainstorming workshop. We want the girls to see really how creative and fun it can be, to develop an app, starting from the beginning. We can't actually turn those ideas into apps in 1 week, although that was kind of my dream when I first started the program, but working with Gray, who is an experienced iOS developer, they said, no, that will not work. We have to give them something that can build on. But I still think it's important for them to start coming up with their own ideas, because those are the ideas that can inspire them to continue to code after camp is over. We do workshops on user interface and app icon design, and that's our awesome design coach in Portland, Krista Mergen, who you might know. And she built that iPhone, by the way. It's like pin the tail on the iPhone or something. She made magnetic interface elements for the girls to try to play around with interface. That was pretty funny and very creative. And for 5 seconds, we thought it was a business idea, but we quickly got over that. And the girls get to do a lot of drawing, which they really, really love. But the main focus of the camp is building apps that can run on a device by the end of the week. We give the girls iPod Touches to use, and we let them take those iPod Touches home every day, because we think it's important for them to get comfortable with the platform. Actually, not everybody has an iPhone. And even among kids who love iPhones, they don't all have iPhones. And we also think it's important for them to be able to show off their work when they get home to their parents and their siblings, because we always want to reinforce that sense of accomplishment. Excuse me. So Gray developed this Xcode template for a personality quiz. The girls create all the content, and they learn how to put it into an Xcode project. They do all the artwork, the writing. They learn how the code works. They learn how to hook up outlets, make the buttons work. The template that we give them is not a functioning app. It's just a series of storyboards. And we show them how to use storyboards and how to drag in the various elements that they need to build their apps. But it's summer camp, so we also have a workshop in hula hooping. We do yoga, have a yoga instructor actually come. They even get to make their own swag. So a button maker, which is not a cheap piece of equipment, by the way, is part of the hardware that we supply at each session. And that turns out really cool, because then they get to all make buttons with the icons that they design, and then they swap them with each other. And it seems like maybe that's a trivial part of the process, but I think all of us love our swag too, and so we want them to have that chance. Field trips to cool software companies. Every girl who has been to Panic now wants to work there. So I believe by 2025 that the gender ratio at Panic will have flipped. So it'll be time for some of those guys to retire. Well, maybe that's a little soon. On Friday, the last day, we have a pitch session. So the girls create keynote decks that describe their apps, their marketing strategy, and their target audience. And we have a panel of women who are investors and entrepreneurs to come and give feedback and encouragement to the girls. And it's another important part of the process, I think. And just coding an app is not enough to be an app developer. I think that's been proven pretty well. After the summer is over, we compile all the quizzes into one app and publish it on the App Store. And in fact, our app went to #1 in paid entertainment, which was very exciting. And I think, especially for girls who can go now, after summer, go to school in the fall and say they have an app on the App Store, and it was #1. So it's pretty cool. So yay, girls in tech. It's that's it, in the program in a nutshell. That's the program I started. And my experiences give me a few thoughts of things that I think might help you if you are, I hope some of you have ideas for a geektivist type project. And first of all, start where you are. In the beginning, I decided I would just do this 1 week of something that could be called App Camp. And while I had big ideas, I knew that if it came down to it, I was just going to take the Big Nerd Ranch book, find a few girls, and work through those projects together. And that would be App Camp for Girls, and I could say, okay, I did it. We started small, and honestly, if we had just stopped after that first day, we could have been very proud of what we accomplished. Those 3 girls' lives were changed forever, and so were our lives. So you might have an idea of something that you can teach to others. Don't feel like you need to quit your job or start a nonprofit program. Staying small is important, starting small is important, but staying small is also an option. Start where they are. Now, we all have high standards. After all, we are Mac users. We're Apple third-party developers, we're designers. But you will not impart all of your experience and wisdom all at once to those that you want to help. You really have to let them try things out for themselves and make their own mistakes. Our aspiring and inspiring developers have their own style, which I sometimes refer to, lovingly of course, as no font left behind. And you know, you sometimes want to say, you know, people like to see some kind of continuity or some look that they can count on. But honestly, the genuine freshness of these designs has delighted the users. I get many, many compliments. I think letting them just go with what they like has been very, very successful for us. And finally, be open to surprises. Things will not turn out the way you plan them. That's 100% guaranteed. And that's not a bad thing. When I first envisioned App Camp for Girls based on the Rock Camp model, where the volunteers are all professional musicians, I thought that our primary volunteer team, our counselors, the ones who work with the girls to make the apps, would all need to be women iOS developers. I knew they were in short supply. Obviously, we had a chicken and egg thing going on. But somehow I thought I would find them and I would convince them to spend a week, give up a week of their time to work with girls. And that never happened. Instead, we went with what we had. 1 iOS developer, 2 customer support specialists, 2 QA experts, 1 Rails developer, and me. Graduate of Big Nerd Ranch, proud graduate of Big Nerd Ranch. And what I hadn't realized in advance is how these individuals would become a tight-knit group that offered each other mutual support and encouragement. Just as the girls are super excited to finally meet their peers in tech, the adults in our program have experienced the same thing. They've made friends, they've found allies who could share much-needed, much-deserved whiskey on Friday afternoon to celebrate their hard work and success. That's not an official part of the program. Please don't tweet that out. So together, I mean, as a group of volunteers, we can change this to this. That's last year at the Bash. That's all the women who were in town last year, 2015. It kind of boggles my mind. So that's just one part of our volunteer group. And it's just so exciting and so, I mean, it's so humbling to work with such amazing women. Finally, I want to talk about one volunteer in particular who surprised me. Michelle Petruzzi volunteered at App Camp for Girls when we launched in 2013. And then for the next 2 years, she worked as our year-round part-time operations manager. App Camp for Girls would not be what it is today if Michelle hadn't decided to leave behind her career in physical therapy to pursue things that she was passionate about. Her husband, Justin Miller, was a developer friend of mine, and he said, Michelle's looking for volunteer opportunities this summer. And I knew her, through Justin as this amazingly detail-oriented person. I was like, we need you. So, without her, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are today. But 6 weeks ago, Michelle died. after a brief, brave battle with pancreatic cancer. And I just want to point out that Michelle was not a programmer. She didn't care about Xcode, except when it made us crazy. She was not a designer. She was just passionate about encouraging girls to learn how fun and creative it is to make apps. So when you're looking around for potential collaborators for your geek passion project, be open to people who are maybe not as geeky as you. You know, be inclusive in every sense of the word. Because a community thrives with a large variety of skills, passions, and personalities. You never know who will end up being important to the cause. Thank you.